Tier 2, core activation, get right into it. Here we go. So the first one, we're going to be starting off in a different version of tabletop, which is quadruped position, okay? So get on your hands and knees. Now from here, we're going to put our elbows down to the ground. Typically when we do things, we stay here, hands on the ground. If you need a pad for your elbows or extra towel or something like that, go ahead and do so. I got bony elbows. This guy right here is basically a weapon, so it really pushes into the ground. It's not super comfy. So even this surface is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me. But here I have my elbows down to the ground, okay? My hands are going to be forward, obviously, about under my forehead away. So you don't want to shift forward and have the hands under the nose or mouth. You want to make sure that the hands are forward, about the crest of the head, and my knees remain under my hips, okay? Now what I'm going to do here is essentially flex my spine. Watch what I do in this spinal flexion. I'm rounding my low back a little bit. What this does is engaging my core, embracing my abs to do that pelvic tilt, okay? I'm constantly pushing my elbows down, keeping that spinal flexion. Now where the real grind and work comes in is when we do what's called a controlled articular rotation with the hip and leg, okay? So I'm really actually trying to work the hip, okay? The rotation of the hip. So check this out. Watch this before you begin. So keeping the spinal flexion, keep the elbows, shoulders engaged by pushing down through the floor. I'm gonna lift one leg to drive my heel straight up towards the sky. Keep the knee at 90 degrees. That's as high as I can go. Then I'm going to bow my knee out directly to my side as slowly as I can. Then I start to bring it forward towards my right elbow, which is the same side, as high as I can. Then I go down. Okay? Really tough. Okay? That is a lot of work in just one rep. So we're going to do 4 more. It's only 5 per side of this, and the reason for that is because the tempo, how slow you're going, is the most important thing. To strengthen the joint truly, that means the joint capsule, the ligaments in the joint, and the tendons in the hip joint, they get stronger by time under tension, which means how slowly can you take the joint through a range of motion. So if you go fast, you're not going to strengthen the joint itself. You're going to strengthen all the big muscles around it. That would be like the glutes, okay, the hip flexors, which are great, but we need to strengthen the joint at the same time. Now your core, as I said, is working a lot at the same time too. So it's the abs are working, the hip is working, the shoulders are working. So I'm going to do 4 more. You're doing 5 total wherever you are. Go ahead and continue along. I'm going to continue with my right leg. Elbows under the shoulders, hands a bit forward. I'm going to drive my heel straight up. Feel my glute flex here. Then I feel my external rotators of the hip. That's my glute medius, piriformis, other things. Now it's hip flexor, more core as I come forward, and then down. Really slow. You should be going at my pace. That's 3. I got 2 more. All right. So that's 5. Now I'm going to face forward so that you can see what it looks like with this angle of me facing straight towards you, so you can see how exactly my leg is bowing out this way without my spine twisting or bending too much, okay? So now I'm going to do 5 on my left leg. Elbows under the shoulders, hands forward, tight fists. Kick my left heel straight up. Notice whether or not my body is leaning turning, twisting. Because the goal is to not twist, not bend, not turn. The body stays stable as my leg, hip go through a rotation. A poor example would look like this. See how my hips are turning, my shoulders are moving, all that? That's an unstable core as the hip goes through that rotation. So we're trying to keep our core stable, our spine stable, not twist or turn as I go through the rotation. So I'm going to do 3 more. Really slow. This is definitely harder on my left hip. Find places and moments to breathe as you begin to get that heart rate up. All right, I'm officially sweating. Now, that's enough of that one. And remember, you're going to come back around and do that again. So 2 or 3 sets in total for all these exercises, which I always recommend, right? It's always at least 2, possibly 3. So the next one is going to be a little spin-off of what we practiced on Tuesday, which is the 6-month supine position from the DNS practice. Now, the 6-month position is where you're on your back, okay? And this should be pretty fresh for you guys, but I'll review it again just slightly. We're going to bring our feet up, knees slightly bent, and my knees are slightly bowed out. So that's slight external rotation to the hips. Okay? Now, depending on your hamstring mobility, you may not go as high. It might be here. It might be a little bit further here. Okay? But the main principle that we talked about last time that's super important for this is that you're tightening your abs so much there's no space in between your low back and the ground. So I'm flexing my abs so tightly that there's no space here. So if you need to put your fingertips here to check, go ahead and do so. Okay? Now I'm going to lay my hands down onto the ground, okay? Kind of by my hips. I'm pushing my palms into the ground, pushing my arms into the ground, pulling my shoulder blades back so that my lats and upper back are engaged. So this is exactly what we started with last time, right? And then you did a little rotation with your feet side to side. This time you're going to allow one leg to drop out towards the ground while keeping the other leg static, okay? So what that's going to look like is this leg doesn't move at all, my left leg is not going to move at all, but my right leg is going to drop straight out. Now, my groin mobility is very much a factor in how far that leg drops to the side. So if I have a tight groin, I may not go as far, I may just go right here. That's totally okay. That's really not the most important part. The most important part is that the low back stays tight to the ground. Okay? Now I'm going to do my left side. My left groin might be tighter, we'll see. Not letting my right leg move at all. Tightening my abs so much my low back does not come off the ground. I'm going to have to push into my left hand more as my left leg goes out. You can see a little bit of trembling. That's my groin working. So I'm going to do 10 of these in total. And I'm going to switch and kind of change angles so you guys can see different angles. I'll do 2 more and then I'll switch angles. You can go ahead and begin the exercise if you haven't already. Again, my tempo is extremely slow here. Look how slowly I'm moving. And I'm also breathing. it's really nice, especially every time that you come up back to vertical, to remind yourself to keep the core braced. Okay, so every time you bring your legs back together, remind yourself of that. So I got 6 more different angles. I'm going to do 4 more. Remember, the hands help you. Push down on those arms. Two more. Last one coming up. As slow as I can. All right. Now what you may notice as you do that one, as your groin begins to mobilize and open up more, you may be able to go further and further with the leg. You can do that, just be careful. Remember, the spine is priority there. Keeping the low back tight to the ground is the #1 priority. And don't drop your leg off to the side if it's going to compromise that. Okay, that's super important. Excuse me. I'm just so excited for the last exercise. I choked on my own spit. I'm not going to edit that, okay? Deal with it. Now the next one is going to be a dynamic Superman. We've been in Superman before. What that means is that you're going to be laying on your stomach, arms out in front of you, legs behind you. So with this, we're going to incorporate the breath. I haven't talked too much about the breath in any of the exercises yet. This one is very specific to the breath. So I want you to inhale as you lift your body and exhale as you set your body down. So I'm going to inhale and lift my arms and legs, and then I'm going to exhale and set down. So as far as where the head should be, let your forehead rest on the ground to begin. Inhale, lift. Exhale, set down. Every time I drop down, I'm trying to completely disengage and let go of all tension. So every time I rest on the ground, I'm completely relaxed. Okay? And as I lift, I'm focusing on keeping my legs straight and my arms straight. So sometimes what will happen, and we've talked about this before in an alternating Superman exercise, is the arm or elbow, the leg will bend as you lift. So something like this. It's not about that. It's about keeping the elbow and knee straight as you lift arms and legs and chest to ensure it's more of the back and core that's working than the arms and legs. Okay? So I'm going to do 10 more. You can do 10 to 15 depending on how you want to do it, how many you want to do. Just remember that the breath is a high priority here, so try to make sure that you're timing the breath perfectly. As you lift, you're inhaling. As you set down, you're exhaling. Okay? We got 10 more. So one thing you may have noticed as I was doing that is that as I was lifting my chest, I continued to look at the ground. So when you lift your chest, you don't lift your head and chin. You lift your chest and arms, but you continue looking down. Okay? You may or may not have noticed that with me, but if you didn't notice that in yourself, the previous set, when you go back around on your second or third set, notice where you're facing, because you want to continue facing down. That's for proper neck alignment. When you lift your chin up like this into a deep neck extension, okay, it can be really hard on the neck. Okay? So that's core activation, that's tier 2. We're moving on to tier 3. Your body's nice and warm now. Let's get more.